should you reuse the same project file for future songs? This is like a bit of a conceptual video, a bit of like a fireside chat style video. I've done a bunch of these before. And this is something that I feel like, although not a lot of producers talk about, it is something that every producer has to ask themselves, right? Now, of course, it depends upon the genre. It depends upon a lot of different factors. But overall, especially in EDM and electronic music, you're going to notice, like say if you make a lot of music, and especially a lot of similar types of music, there's going to be a lot of crossovers. Take a genre like big room house, for example, in the electronic music world. Well, the difference between, like, say, one big room house track, and of course, I know there are some differences and whatnot, but if you look at a lot of producers, the difference between one big room house track and sometimes another one, pretty similar in terms of the overall layout, the structure, the mixing, the mastering. Of course, the sound design, the arrangement, the melody, the key, all these, very different things are, of course, can be different from track to track. However, the overall main idea, or main ideas in general, can be crossed over. So should you reuse the same project file? Now, I'm going to be very honest on this video. One, I personally have reused the same project file for a bunch of songs sometimes. It really depends upon the genre and what I'm going for. The reason why, and I think this is the big thing, kind of to give you a quick answer to this question, at least my perspective, is this. It's not a matter of should you or shouldn't you per se. It's a matter of how you go about it. Here's my mindset. If I listen to one of my songs, and let's say I reuse the same project file for, let's say, another one of my songs, well, can I tell that it's the same project file? If so, if let's say I'm listening, I'm like, this sounds almost the same as this one song, then I'm doing it wrong. It's not about should you, shouldn't you. It's all about how you go about it. The reason why I say this is because I noticed, especially the more I started producing, this is years ago, and I was like, wow, I'm doing the same exact thing every single time I make a song. I remember listening to a podcast, I can't remember what producer it was, it may have been Layback Luke, or no, I think it was AC Slater, excuse me, I believe it was AC Slater, who was saying that every single time he made a new song, he'd basically do everything from scratch. Every little element of the song from scratch for every single song. And he was working with a producer, I can't remember the other producer's name, and the producer was like, hey, you already made this one element, like white noise, for example. You already made white noise. Why not just copy and paste it over to this? Like, it's not like it changes anything per se. The end result, in a sense, can be the same. And so that's a good perspective to have. I feel like that a lot of times in music production, we, of course, want every song to be new and unique and original, but there are some crossovers. There are some carryovers. This is something that I personally noticed when it came to Moombahton. In case you don't know, when it comes to me, I describe my music as a blend of world music, house music, and bass music. And one of my favorite genres to produce is Moombahton. And remember, I've worked in a couple of Moombahton songs. I was like, you know what? This past song that I made with, like, say, the bass, like the boom, da boom, da boom, da boom, da boom, that kind of melody, the bass, the kick drums, I'm actually going to kind of, almost without meaning to, make the same exact kind of foundation, in a sense, for this new track. What if I just copy and paste it over? And that's a big thing I do want to say, that when it comes to reusing project files, or I might even get even bigger picture, reusing other elements in your songs, I always like to ask myself, is this doing it in such a way that, one, of course, makes this new song sound better, right? That's, of course, the number one thing. But two, am I just kind of wasting more time just because I'm like, well, it's a new song. I feel like it's weird to take this one Moombahton drum sample and sub that I already kind of mixed and perfectly crafted. I feel like it's kind of cheating in a sense. That's how I used to feel. But now I'm like, you know what, though? One, the end result is probably going to be the same. But two, it's probably going to sound better overall, in my opinion, because I already have this, like I said, kick drum and sub that I've already mixed and EQ'd and kind of put together in the perfect way to where they have that low end hit well, especially on Moombahton songs. So why would I try doing that again, where it might even come out worse, maybe better, right, but worse? I'll just take some of these elements of this project file, or I'll start with that project file, move it over, and this is typically what I do when I am reusing one of my old project files. I'll open it up, save it as a new project, of course, and then I'll delete all the kind of like lead and main elements in the song. So I'll remove, of course, any instance of Serum or Massive, any samples that I feel like are really kind of noticeable or relevant to the old song or whatever. Basically, I'll delete everything and just leave the main foundation of the track. That way, which is kind of good, I find, it actually sparks my creativity. Because at this point, I'm like, okay, I don't have to worry about as much mixing or mastering because it's already kind of mixed and mastered from the old song. So now I just get to focus on the lead. I just get to focus on sound design. I get to focus on making a really catchy melody or really catchy arrangement, etc., etc. So for me, and this is what I say to a lot of people, I just think it depends on how you go about it, because I feel like there's mainly two perspectives if you think about it when it comes to making a new song. Put that in quotation marks, a new song. One, you pull up Ableton or FL Studio, Logic, whatever you use, and you have a blank canvas. There is something nice about that where you're like, what do I even do? Should I just snag a loop? Should I just pull up Serum, which is again, it depends for me song to song. Should I pull up just Serum and just mess around? And if I come up with a cool little like sound design, a cool little instrument or synth or whatever, maybe I'll just run with that and start with that. You know, I'm really not sure. But there's also something really nice, and again, it's funny how I think it just depends upon my mood, for lack of a better word, where there's also something nice being like, all right, this song is already, the foundation's almost done. Like, if I'm working on a Moomaton song, a Big Room House song, like I mentioned earlier, where, let's be honest, Big Room House song, when it comes to foundation, really just have, like, a big room kick with, like, usually a huge sub on top of it, but it's usually comprised of one sample. So, let's say I have a kick drum, and let's say an F, for example, and that's it. I'm like, okay, I already have pretty much the low end done of the Big Room House song. Just boom, boom, boom. Typical four on the floor style kick drum. Well, now I have that done. So now I'm already kind of like ahead of the game, where now I'm like, okay, now I don't have to think of any other element except making a good drop, and the bass, in a sense, already done because of the kick drum. So now I'm just going to focus on really good leads, arrangements, melodies, etc., like I said. So overall, again, to sum up this video, this is something I want to do a video about because, again, I feel like, especially if you produce music for a while, especially in the EDM world, it is something that I feel like almost inevitably it's going to come up, again, especially if you make a lot of different types of music, or not, depending on what you do, but especially if you make, like, say, one specific genre like dubstep, sometimes that snare is so perfect and that kick is so perfect, you're like, why would I try to recreate this? And it might even come out worse when I already have the perfect mixed snare and kick samples and everything's kind of done in such a way that's exact. Why don't you just copy that same project file over? And I think that's really not a bad idea, and sometimes it can make a better song. Again, depending on creativity, depending on how you go about it. But the biggest thing at the end of the day, like I say to everybody, is this. It's not necessarily if you should or shouldn't use an old project file to make a new song. It's all about how you go about it.